King's Dominion, located in Doswell, Virginia, is known for being home to some of the best roller coasters in the United States. From Pantherian, or formerly I-305, to Twisted Timbers, to Dominator, to the new for 2025 Rapterra, King's Dominion has a lot to offer. And even though it's widely considered the second best park in Virginia, it's still one of the best amusement parks in the country. It's just unfortunate that it has to compete with one of the best theme parks overall, Busch Gardens Williamsburg. But King's Dominion still has 14 awesome coaster credits, and for the sake of this list, I'm going to rank them as 13 roller coasters, because even though Racer 75 is technically 2 credits, I'm just going to put that as 1 spot. This park opened on May 3rd, 1975, and I made it here for the first time in August of 2025, when I had one of the best days I've ever had at an amusement park, and got to ride every single one of these 13 coasters a handful of times. So in this video, I'm going to be ranking them up and telling you exactly why I put them where I did. If you guys go on to enjoy it, make sure you drop a like and subscribe for future coaster and theme park content. It'll really help me out against the YouTube algorithm. And stick around because some of my placements might surprise you, and King's Dominion is known for having a really stacked 1-2 punch. So stick around to see how I order those rides, or if they're even in my top 2. And just a little disclaimer, these are all my opinions, so feel free to let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. Now without further ado, let's get into the list. Kicking off the list at number 13 is Great Pumpkin Coaster, the park's kiddie coaster. This opened back in 1997 and is built by E&F Myler. This is last for obvious reasons, as the drop is only 8 feet tall and it's obviously catered towards the younger thrill seekers. With that being said, it's a really good coaster for younger kids, and I think it's cooler than the one at Kings Island because it goes through this pumpkin cutout and has some nice trees around it. And for my coaster enthusiasts looking for the credit, you do not have to have a younger kid to ride this or the next coaster on the list. And at number 12, it's Woodstock Express, the park's oldest roller coaster. This roller coaster is actually super unique as it opened 1 year before the park did in 1974. It operated as part of an animal exhibit that was on site of the construction of the theme park. It was built by Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters and is a clone of the one at Kings Island and Carowinds, but these are still some of the best family coasters to date. It is definitely catered towards younger thrill seekers with 1,385 feet or 422 meters of track and its modest height of 35 feet or about 10 meters tall, but it is definitely a step up from the Great Pumpkin Coaster with a little bit larger drops. This ride is still pretty smooth and is fun for all ages. There's not too many forces on it, but I would recommend sitting in the back if you want a little bit of lift. It does have buzz bar restraints, but be warned if you're an adult, the cars aren't the most roomy, so it isn't the most comfortable if you have longer legs. Coming in at number 11 is Zapple, the mock Wild Mouse coaster that opened in 2002. Now this coaster isn't necessarily bad, but it's not really memorable either. I have ridden a handful of these mock Wild Mouses now, and this is one of the better ones. It's one of the bigger models, meaning it has this large drop, which is definitely the best part of the ride. And this ride is pretty comfortable. I find some of these mock Wild Mice to be kind of painful on these turns, but Zapple really wasn't that bad. There is solid laterals on these turns, and I mean the coaster is kind of fun, but it feels very cookie cutter and unoriginal, and there's just much better rides in the park. If it doesn't have a long line, you can check it out. Cracking the top 10 is another coaster built by Mock Rides, this time being their bobsled coaster, Reptilian, that opened back in 1988 as Avalanche. Now this ride used to be themed to Olympic bobsledding, but due to the recent jungle expedition area in the back left side of the park, it was rethemed to this jungle reptile theme. It doesn't necessarily have a specific story, but it is very visually appealing and there's some nice details in the station and queue. Now I've only ridden 2 bobsled coasters, being this and Flying Turns at Knoebels, and I do prefer Flying Turns a little bit, as that ride is both longer and a little more intense. But Reptilian is still fun, and it rides very unique. I wouldn't say it's rough, but you can feel a little bounce as you ride across that track, or trough I should say, because this ride doesn't have a track at all, and you can definitely feel that as your car rolls side to side a little in the trough. When we went to King's Dominion, we started with this, Tumbili, and Rapterra, as Rapterra is new, and this and Tumbili don't have great capacity, so I would recommend knocking this one out early. And since there's only 7 cars on this ride, that means that only 14 riders can ride per train max. And I believe each adult can only sit 1 per car, so there's typically only about 7 people on each train. Number 9 is our second of the 5 roller coasters in the Jungle Expedition area, but this coaster is the one coaster that doesn't really fit in Jungle X. I'm of course talking about Backlot Stunt Coaster. Coaster, the Premier Ride's family launch coaster that opened back in 2006. Now this ride used to be themed to the Italian Job movies, and is the same coaster that's at Kings Island and Canada's Wonderland. We just saw the Kings Island Backlot Stunt Coaster get rethemed to Queen City Stunt Coaster, and I would love to see this Backlot Stunt Coaster at Kings Dominion get rethemed to maybe have Jeeps as the trains and go through some form of jungle expedition. I mean, it's literally perfect for the area. They could theme the ride to Jungle Expedition. This is just a family coaster, of course, but it does feature that launch that's pretty fun, getting you up to 40 miles per hour, and I do sometimes gray out in this double upwards helix. I do think I prefer the version at Kings Island though slightly. For number 8, we are once again staying in Jungle Expedition, this time for Tumbili, the SNS 4D free spin coaster, opening in 2022. Now this is the smaller version of that model. For example, if you've ridden Joker at Great Adventure or Six Flags New England, these rides are a little bit bigger, and personally I like that more because unpopularly I actually have a lot of fun on these rides. A lot of people complain about the restraints closing too tight, and while they aren't the most comfortable, I don't really have a problem with them. And to address the other common point of dislike, if you easily get motion sick or can't handle flips, this definitely isn't the ride for you. Because like I said, this is a 4D free spin coaster, meaning that even though this ride only consists of small little dips, your seats flip independently of the track. Now a lot of people don't love this, but I think it's pretty fun, and I mean this feels like any of the other free spins. I do however really like the presentation of this ride. The supports painted to look like bamboo is awesome, and this ride has some loose Temple of the Monkey theme, and the queue is very visually appealing. Next up at number 7, we have the second and last of the park's original roller coasters, being Racer 75 that opened with the park in 1975. Now this ride used to be called Rebel Yell, but was just renamed recently. This ride is of course closely based off the racer at Kings Island, as Taft Broadcasting Company, the creator of both Kings Island and Kings Dominion, wanted to replicate the success of the racer here in Doswell, Virginia. And this ride, in my opinion, actually has better airtime than Racer at Kings Island, although it is much rougher. I do hope we see this ride get retracked soon because it is quite bouncy. I personally think it's really fun though, and it's even better if you can get your friends on the other train, and then you can make a little game out of it. You can shout at each other across the trains. It's pretty fun. This ride is also slightly different than Racer at Kings Island, because on this one the rides stay together the entire out and back layout, looking specifically at this turnaround right here, whereas the one at Kings Island, after this 4th airtime hill, they split apart, so you're further apart on the turnarounds. You also get some amazing views of Pantherian on this turnaround, which is pretty sweet. And final thing, the lift hill kind of goes back and forward like this, alternating which train is in front, which is just a fun little goofy detail that I really appreciate. You gotta love classic wooden coasters like this. Coming in at number 6 is another cloned roller coaster from Kings Island, Flight of Fear, opening back in 1996. Although it's not so much a clone as they both opened the same year. This indoor launch roller coaster is super unique, having 4 inversions and some solid space theming. I personally prefer this one to Kings Island slightly. I think the ride runs smoother and doesn't stop quite as bad on the mid-course brake run, although I think the theming's a little bit nicer at Kings Island. This ride's inversions are fun and somewhat forceful, and I really like the low to the ground second half, finishing with that pretty whippy roll. Flight of Fear does have a bit of a bite to it, and the restraints aren't super comfortable, but you do have to appreciate its significance in the roller coaster industry. The 2 Flight of Fear roller coasters were actually the first roller coasters to ever launch the train using electromagnetic power, or more specifically, a linear induction motor or LIM launch. This is super significant as it is the main type of launch today, as most launches are linear synchronous motors or LSM launches. So while Flight of Fear might not be the most intense or modern coaster, it is definitely important and it has a pretty fun launch. Kicking off our top 5 is a roller coaster that I know a lot of coaster enthusiasts are probably going to have higher in their rankings, but it's Dominator, the floorless coaster that opened in 2008. Now technically that's when this ride opened at Kings Dominion, but it opened back in 2000 at Geauga Lake, the old park that was in Ohio before its untimely demise. And Dominator is pretty sweet because it is a massive floorless coaster. I'm not entirely sure if it's the tallest or longest one, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. This ride's drop is about 150 feet tall and has 4,210 feet of track. I think the color scheme is pretty sweet with these dark blue supports and then light orange and yellow track. Specifically, this vertical loop is yellow. It also has unpainted rails, which might go unnoticed to a lot of people, but I think it's kind of a cool small detail. I'm not entirely sure why they did this. I think it's a design choice, but I see the vision. The inversions are solid with pretty solid positive Gs. I remember this Cobra roll and some of these low to the ground rolls to be pretty fun, but it was definitely not the smoothest coaster in the world. Now, I wouldn't say it was very rough either. I'm not complaining about it, but if you ride this a couple times, you probably will bang your head a few times. With that being said, it's definitely not not the roughest floorless coaster, and if you just lean your head forward a little bit, it's really not that bad. I personally find these rides pretty fun. I like the sensation of your feet dangling, and the inversions are pretty good, but I just personally think the 4 coasters ahead of it are a little more memorable. Now this coaster is kind of weirdly placed, being wedged in between the parking lot and Planet Snoopy, but it doesn't really feel like a parking lot coaster, and besides it being out of the way of all the other major rides, I don't really hate its placement. Now at number 4, we have another roller coaster built by Swiss manufacturer Bolliger & Mabillard, this time being the new for 2025 Rapterra. This is the second launched wing coaster that I've ridden, behind Thunderbird at Holiday World, and while it doesn't quite live up to that ride, I actually thought this ride was underrated. Now yes, we first have to address the rattle. I rode this ride a little under 6 months after it opened, and it was not riding like a 6-month-old roller coaster. I mean, just look at this video of it bouncing. That's genuinely insane. With that being said, I didn't really think it was uncomfortable. Unfortunately, I did only get one ride on Rapterra, but I was in the second to back row on the outside seat, and it was bouncy, but I don't really think it hurt. Now, if you do marathon it a couple times, I could foresee it giving you a little bit of a headache, but I don't actually think the bounce deters from the ride. I think it's just a little annoying, as we've seen B&M build smooth coasters for so many years, to ride a brand new for 2025 B&M and have it not be glass smooth. But the layout is pretty good. Despite the bounciness on the launch, it is pretty solid. If you've ever ridden Thunderbird, I think that launch is a little better, but this one feels similar. The acceleration is pretty quick and it is a little bit punchy. This is a rolling launch, but you're going at a pretty slow speed before, so it does feel pretty good. But I do think Thunderbird's launch from a standstill does feel a little more punchy. I like these little arches that you go under as you go through the launch, and then you go into some pretty fun, big flowy inversions in the first half, as well as this cool moment when you swoop down near the path. You pass by this big themed structure, and this final roll is fun. Now I haven't ridden Wild Eagle since 2022, but I think I might like Rapterra more than Wild Eagle. That goes to show this ride isn't bad. I think it's been getting a little too much crap, and it actually is a pretty good fit for this park. It just doesn't live up to the legendary Volcano the Blast coaster that used to be on this plot of land. But that would have been really hard for them to do. And outside of the launch and a few of these early valleys, the rest of the ride is glass smooth. It's just the bouncing in these moments. Now this whole video I've been making comparisons to Kings Island, as these two parks are sister parks, and the reason Kings Dominion opened in the first place was because Taft Broadcasting wanted to replicate Kings Island. Now Kings Island has built a lot of legendary wooden roller coasters. From the Racer, to the Beast, to the Son of Beast, they're all super famous, but one kind of stands out. That's the Beast, being the longest roller coaster in the United States, and longest wooden roller coaster in the world. The thing that's crazy about it, it was built completely in-house, meaning that no roller coaster manufacturer built it. Now you're probably thinking, bro, why is this Kings Island fanboy talking about the Beast? This is a Kings Dominion video. But the point I'm getting at is that the Taft Broadcasting Company attempted to replicate the success of the Beast, building another fully in-house wooden roller coaster at Kings Dominion, opening in 1982. I'm of course talking about Grizzly. Now this roller coaster is only about half as long as the Beast, coming in at 3,150 feet long. It has a solid height of 87 feet, and I know some of you may be surprised to see this on this list, because this ride used to have a really bad reputation for being incredibly rough. Now just a few years ago, it was retracked, receiving the Gravity Group pre-cut track, and when I first rode it last August, it was running so well. This ride was incredibly smooth, and has a lot of really good forces. This ride is also super uniquely placed. It's hidden back in the woods, so you kind of can't really see it at any point in the park. You have to go through this gift shop to find it, and then the queue line is through the woods. It's actually pretty cool. I unfortunately did only get one back row ride, and I would really love to one day get a night ride on this, because I've heard it's awesome back in the woods. But from the one ride I did get, this ride really surprised me. Not only was it comfortable, but it had a pretty good sense of speed. There's some moments with pretty minimal banking that you receive pretty sharp lateral G-forces on. On this turn right here, you're being pinned into the side of the train. Grizzly also had multiple little hills that sharply bank to the right after you go down the hill, such as this one in the tunnel and this one at the end of the ride, which I remember having a fun mix of laterals and airtime, making for a pretty impressive sensation. Now, although this ride is kind of just a shell of what the Beast at Kings Island is, it does draw some similarities, having high-speed moments through these tunnels, its wooded setting, and some good moments of sharp laterals. I do think the Beast is a little better, pretty much solely due to its length and final double helix moment, but Grizzly does have much better airtime, and if the Beast was shorter, Grizzly would probably be better. Alright, now time for the big reveal. Which coaster is at the number 2 spot? It is Twisted Timbers, the 2018 Rocky Mountain Construction iBox coaster of the old Hurler coaster. Now I've ridden Hurler at Carowinds, and these coasters aren't bad, but they're definitely not good either. Twisted Timbers, on the other hand, is really good. Just to put it into perspective, this is my 11th overall favorite roller coaster, and I've ridden 214, so that's pretty solid. It is glass smooth the entire ride and offers so much ejectability. ejector airtime. If you've ever ridden Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point, this ride kind of feels like the second half of that ride, just throwing non-stop airtime hills and flowy inversions at you. The barrel roll down drop is pretty fun and feels very similar to the one on Wind Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom, although I do think this one's a little more whippy. This run of 3 camelback hills is awesome, as they all offer pure ejector airtime bliss. All the inversions on this ride are good, the trick track double up is awesome, and this Outer Bank hill is actually kind of mental. If you've ridden an RMC coaster, you get the general idea of how this feels. And with some airtime room, Twisted Timbers does not disappoint. It has amazing ejector airtime. But the reason I have it at number 2 is because although it's amazing and has a lot of great sharp out of your seat airtime moments, it does feel similar to other RMCs. And don't get me wrong, that's okay because RMCs are great. I mean, after all, this thing is my number 11 overall. But my favorite coaster at King's Dominion is one of the most unique roller coasters of all time. I'm talking about Pantherian, formerly known as Intimidator 305. This ride is now loosely just themed to a panther, but it has nice jungle ambiance, and I personally kind of like the orange color scheme. I do think the red and yellow and the name I-305 is iconic, but I by no means dislike Pantherian. I think it's a cool name. Now this is the 8th tallest roller coaster in the world, opening back in 2010. It is also one of 7, well soon to be 8 with Tormenta opening, Giga coasters, which are roller coasters with a height or drop in between 300 to 399 feet. Pantherian's 300-foot drop has awesome airtime, and so does this big hill and some of these little rapid twists. But the reason Pantherian is so good is not the airtime. While the airtime is great, where Pantherian shines is positive G-forces. Now airtime, where you're rising up out of your seat, is negative G-forces. You experience positive G-forces as your body is pulled into the train, causing some of the blood in your brain to rush down to your legs. So for example, experiencing 4 positive G-forces, or 4 Gs, would be experiencing 4 times the normal strength of gravity. Now I don't know if any of that made sense, but Pantherian pulls up to 4.5 G-forces, which is basically as high as modern roller coasters go. Now this is completely safe to experience on a roller coaster and in this fashion on Pantherian, but it leads to this ride being too much for the average guest. This is because on this first turn, you oftentimes see stars or even start to lose your vision. I even rode this with someone who temporarily lost consciousness. Now that doesn't happen often, but it actually is pretty cool. Once you realize that this is okay to experience and just relax during these high G-force moments, it's actually really fun in my opinion because it's just so cool and unique to experience this type of G-forces on a roller coaster. Multiple of these low to the ground turns on the ride have those intense moments, and this is my favorite Giga coaster because it has that massive 300-foot drop, but then it stays so much lower to the ground than any of the other Giga coasters, so you really feel the intensity of that 90 miles per hour. So that is going to conclude my ranking of all 13 roller coasters at King's Dominion. What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why? And how would you rank the roller coasters at King's Dominion? If you guys enjoyed this video or found it informative, please leave a like and subscribe for future coaster content. Also let me know in the comments which park's coasters you want me to rank next. King's Dominion is an awesome park, and I hope that all of you who want to are able to get out there soon. Have an amazing day guys, stay positive, keep riding coasters, and remember you can do anything you put your mind to. See y'all in the next one, peace.